This video is all about writing equations in slope-intercept form, and it's lesson 49 in your book. This is the good stuff. This is where we really get into that coordinate geometry part of algebra. So the slope-intercept form of an equation is y equals mx plus b. That should look familiar to all of you. Now the m is the slope of the line. It's telling how is the y changing in relation to the x. And the b part of the equation is the y-intercept. So if x equals 0, that's what y would equal. Basically, it's where that line crosses the y-axis. Here, we're going to use the slope-intercept form of an equation to determine the slope and the y-intercept of a line. So here we have this equation, y equals 3x minus 4. Now, remember that our slope-intercept form was y equals mx plus b. M was our slope, and b was our y-intercept. So we need to locate both of these things. Now, this is in slope-intercept form. We have y equals a number times x plus another number. Now, I know it looks like minus, but when you have minus, you could say that you are adding the opposite. So minus 4 is the same as plus a negative 4. Now let's decide what our slope is. Notice here that our slope is the number being multiplied by x. Here, 3 is the number being multiplied by x. So our slope, or m, is 3. Our y-intercept is the number that's being added to slope times x. And remember, we are subtracting, so we're really adding a negative. So the number that we are adding to our slope times x is negative 4. So our line would cross the y-axis at negative 4. All right, now we want to do another one. We want to determine the slope and the y-intercept of this line. Notice, however, that it is not in slope-intercept form. Whenever you have a linear equation that's not in slope-intercept form, we can put it in slope-intercept form simply by solving for y. So we want to get y by itself, and then on the other side of the equal sign have our x term and a constant. So we are trying to get this number, or this letter, right here by itself, and we need to move everything else away from it. Now, I know that in slope-intercept form, I want to have my x term first. So what I'm going to do is try to get rid of this 2x. Now, since I'm adding positive 2x plus 3y, I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides of my equation. So then I have 3y minus 9 equals negative 2x. All right, now after I have a number times x here, my y-intercept is a constant. So see, here's my constant. It's negative 9 or minus 9, so I'm going to add 9 to both sides. And I'm left with 3y equals negative 2x plus 9. Now, I'm not finished here. It does look like it's in slope-intercept form because we've got the mx plus b. However, y is not by itself. So in order to get y by itself, I'm going to have to divide both sides by 3. And remember, you can't just divide the things that are convenient by 3. You have to divide everything by 3. So 3 divided by 3 here cancels, and we have y equals negative 2 divided by 3 is negative 2/3, and then we've got our x. And 9 divided by 3 is a positive 3. Now this is in slope-intercept form. We did that simply by solving for y. So now we can identify the slope and the y-intercept. Remember that the slope is the number that we are multiplying by x in slope-intercept form. So this is the number I'm multiplying by x, so it's my slope, negative 2/3. My y-intercept is the number that I'm adding to that x term, or my constant in the equation. So I am adding 3 to this x term, so my y-intercept would be 3. Once you get it into slope-intercept form, it is super easy to convert it, or to figure out what slope is and what your y-intercept is. All right. Now here we have a definition. It's just something that you need to know, and that is solution of an equation in 2 variables. So whenever you have a linear equation, it has a solution in 2 variables. And that solution is an ordered pair, or a set of ordered pairs, because sometimes there are many, that satisfies the equation, or that makes the equation true. So we just need any point on our graph that will make the equation true, and that is considered a solution of that equation. Now here we want to graph this equation of a line that's in slope-intercept form. We're going to use our slope-intercept form to graph this equation, and this makes graphing super duper easy. It's much better than using a table. So our equation is y equals 2/3 x. Now remember, our slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. This is our slope, and this is our y-intercept, or where it crosses the y-axis. So check out this. We've got y equals 2/3 x, and we're not adding anything to this equation. Now, since we're not adding anything, we could say that we are adding 0, because adding nothing and adding 0 are the same thing. So now we have a slope right here. This is our slope. And remember, slope is rise over run. So our rise would be 2, and our run would be 3. And then this number right here is our y-intercept. That tells us that this line will cross the y-axis at 0. So 0 is the x value, and then in this case, 0 is also the y value. Now we're going to use this to graph. So the first thing I want to do is find my y-intercept. Now I know at the y-intercept, x equals 0, and this tells me that y also equals 0. So that's the point I'm going to start with, and I'm going to draw a point at 0, 0 right there. Then I'm going to use my slope to find some other points on this line. So my slope, or my rise over run, is rise 2, run 3. So from this point, my y-intercept, I'm going to rise 1, 2, and run 1, 2, 3, and then draw a point. Now, remember, if I go up and to the right, I can also go down and to the left. So I can rise down 2 and run to the left 3, and I have another point right there. Because this is an equation, all the points in between make sense. So we can actually connect these dots. And you do want to do that whenever you're graphing a line. You want to connect the dots to show that all the points in between make sense. Now that's much, much easier than creating a table of values. That was an example, by the way. It definitely needs to be in your notebook. All right, here's another. We want to graph the equation of this line in slope-intercept form. All right, so here we have 2x plus y plus 5 equals 0. Now, we could create a table, but that would be a huge hassle. So instead, let's just turn this equation into slope-intercept form. All we have to do is solve for y. So remember, I want my x term to come first, so that's the first thing I'm going to move. I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides of my equation. That leaves me with y plus 5 equals negative 2x. Then, the only thing I have to do to get y by itself is to subtract 5 from both sides. So I have y equals negative 2x minus 5. That's in slope-intercept form, and that tells me that negative 2 equals my slope. Or I could say negative 2 over 1, since I want rise over run. I know for my y-intercept that x will equal 0. And this number that I'm adding here is my y value. Now, since I'm subtracting 5, I'm actually adding a negative. So my y value will be negative 5. In order to graph this, I start with my y-intercept, so I draw a point at 0, negative 5 on my graph. So 0, negative 5. Then I use my slope to determine the other points. So I'm rising negative 2, which means I'm going down, and I'm running positive 1, which means I'm going to the right. So I'm going to rise negative 2, run 1. Now if I go down and to the right, I can also go up and to the left, so I have more points. And then finally, I just want to connect those points to complete my line. All right, now we're going to talk about writing the equation of a line from a graph. Now remember, all we need to write the slope-intercept form of the line is the slope and the y-intercept. So we don't need to fill in the y, we don't need to fill in the x, but we do need to fill in the slope and we do need to fill in the y-intercept. So check out our graph right here. Here's our graph. We can find our y-intercept by deciding where this crosses the y-axis. So right here at -1 is where this crosses the y-axis. So that tells us that b is going to equal -1. Now we need to find our slope. So I have one point here. I'm going to locate another point on the line. It doesn't matter what point, but the best ones are the ones where it crosses through the corners of these squares. So maybe right here is a good point. Now to find my slope, I calculate my rise over my run. So I'm rising 1, and it's a +1 because I'm going up. And from there, to get to the next point, I am running 1, 2. So my run is 2. That means my slope is 1 over 2, and I always want to simplify that as much as possible. So if it were 2 over 4, I would simplify it to 1/2. Now I can write the equation of the line just by using the graph. So I'm going to fill in my b, -1, and I'm going to fill in my m as 1/2, and I get y equals, and then instead of m, I'm going to write 1/2, then x, and then plus b, which is -1. Now I don't want to leave it like this because this isn't simplified. I have plus minus right next to each other. So I'll write y equals 1/2 x, and then plus a negative is really subtracting 1. This is the slope-intercept form of my equation. And here's our final example. Again, we're going to write the equation of the line from the graph. So remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. M is our slope, b is our y-intercept, or where that line crosses the y-axis. So that's what we're going to find first. Where does this line cross the y-axis? Check out this line right here. It looks like it crosses the y-axis here at 2. So my y-intercept is 2. Now let's find my slope. In order to find the slope, I have to find another point on the line. Now, they use this one, but I'm actually going to use this point right here. See how that line is crossing through the corner of that square? So that is an easy way to tell me where a point on the line is. Now, slope is rise over run. So first I need to figure out my rise. So to go from this point to this point, I'm going to rise in the downward direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I've gone down 6, which means my rise is -6. Then I need to figure out my run for my denominator. So once I go down 6, I go to the right 1, 2 to get to this next point. Since I went to the right 2, it's +2. Then I just want to simplify my slope. So -6 divided by 2 gets me -3. So my slope is -3. Now I have my y-intercept, I have my slope, and all I have to do is plug it into my slope-intercept form of my linear equation. So I've got y equals, and then I know m is -3, and then I have x, plus b, which I identified as 2. So the equation of this line is y equals -3x plus 2.